Okay, hopefully I should be live now. Okay, let's just check. Should be okay. Whew. Okay, so the match will be starting in a couple of minutes. I'm just following GrandLapin, so it'll be alerting me when they do start. I was just having a quick look through the games that these guys played in their last round of the tournament, particularly with White, just to get an idea of what might come. It looks like Arka. I think these games are in reverse order actually, like in the match. So he started off playing the two knights with a very critical line, and well, Fast Tsunami was playing a bit of a sideline. And he won that one. Did he win all his games with White? No, Tsunami did manage to win one. But the first two matches he played the same line, the two knights, critical line, so that may come up again. Then he switched to his H3 move, which I think also GrandLapin was playing in that match against. Well, he certainly played this a fair bit, but maybe he didn't play it in the match. But this line is a line that both Fast Tsunami and GrandLapin like quite a lot, so interesting to see Arka played it. And he also won that game. What else did he? The exchange, bit of a strange choice for this level of the competition, but he did alright with it. I think actually he lost this game, but I think he got a decent position. But yeah, Black's getting good counterplay and went on to win. And then in the last game, I think he just needed a draw, so he went for a line which I think he thought would give him good drawing chances. He also went for this same. I think he did it slightly differently. Actually, no, he did this exact thing. I think also when he was playing on New Bends, when he just needed a draw to secure the 2017 title. I think he played this exact line in the same way. Or yeah, it was pretty much the same, exactly the same. And yeah, he managed to get his draw. GrandLapin, on the other hand, they started. No, they haven't. So GrandLapin is playing a bullet game right now. I'm not sure why he's is Arka online actually, just worth checking, because Arka does have some history of not showing up all the time. No, he's around. So perhaps after this game, hopefully they'll start the real match. So just to quickly go through, so GrandLapin was playing. He played the Atomic Attack, and he was playing it also in the same way you saw Arka play it just before, but with Queen F4, which is a little bit more of a critical move. And I think they played down one of the most critical lines. Black's got some choices. I mean, Rook F8 I think is a move here. Bishop E4 is also, I've analysed a bit. They're the two main moves, so he played Bishop E4. And so he did win this game. It looks like the game was roughly in balance until some point. E4. Yeah, so Black's 2 pawns down, but he's got a very strong knight. I think players in the chat at the time were getting a little bit excited about Black's position. They're saying Black was basically winning. I'm not quite sure that's really true, but certainly Black has good counter chances in these types of positions. Then in the next game, he didn't go back for that line, perhaps a little bit concerned. My stream is black. Okay, should have fixed it. Sorry about that. Hopefully it doesn't do that again. Bishop D3. So after that previous game, which you guys didn't see, he switched to, I think the previous game he played Knight G5. This was against Fast Tsunami in the last round. he went for this line. It's quite a main line. But basically, Tsunami got good counterplay in this line. I think it's knight b5, isn't it? Is that right? Knight b5 main move, and well, bishop takes f5. It's fairly straightforward for black. But this one, yeah, the main moves are rook f8 and bishop b4. Tsunami got good counterplay, and then he switched to bishop d3 on move 3. And I found this a bit of a strange choice because I think black's doing well. I think black's doing pretty well in these positions. They followed kind of the main line. Bishop e4's fine, and then yeah, knight h6 is bad because it just allows e4. If black plays e4, it's I think pretty playable for black. I don't think I'll be going for this in an important match, as with white. But he did win the game, and then the next game he played again this line under the. I think he just needed a draw at this point, so Tsunami couldn't repeat the same line with bishop f5 because then there's this well-known draw like bishop f6. You just go back and forth, okay, to either of these squares, and the game is a draw. I'm sure lots of games have, loads of games have ended like this. So Tsunami had to do something different, and GrandLapin won, I think, fairly quickly, fairly easily. So I'd expect to see some repeats of those lines. So with Arka white, I'd expect the two knights with g4, and GrandLapin, I'm kind of, perhaps he's going to come up with some different lines. I'm not sure. Depends how seriously he's taking his preparation for the match. I mean, obviously this line is fine, but having played it in these games against Tsunami, it might be that he doesn't want that target on him and play something different. But he's not traditionally been such a strong, blow people away theoretician. And he's playing another bullet game. So I don't know if anyone's spoken to him, if they know what's going on with it. But anyway, I could just try and comment on the bullet, but these guys are both better than me at bullet. I think I'm a lowly 2200 or so. Sacrifices coming or not. I could drop a message to one of them and just see if they're going to start soon. But yeah, I don't know, if anyone's got any anything they want me to talk about or look at, then let me know. I think I can check the oh my goodness, my screen keeps going black. Trying to see where it is. I can actually see the Twitch chat. Don't know how very much there will be on there, but we should start any second now. I don't know what time that was sent, but so yeah, hi IJH and hysterics. Well, it says it's hysterics. I'm not sure that is hysterics, but it might well be. Roaring Roars, I recognise that name. They'll probably start in 5 minutes. Okay. Oh, for goodness sake. I don't know if it's because I'm switching around between the maybe I'll just stick with this window. I thought I was being clever, recording a particular window, and I could go and look around in other windows without anyone seeing it on stream. But it seems every time I try and do something, it kills the streaming window and makes it go black. So I'll stop trying to be at least slightly technically able and just stay here and be my normal self. Which means, oh, the match has started. So knight f. Oh, here we go. Arka is white in the first game. So yeah, I think probably two knights is most likely, but Arka does play lots of critical stuff. So when I've played him before, he has played, you know, critical lines of e3, knight f3 and e3 as well, and also the two knights. So he's playing pretty much all the big challenging openings when he's white. Although, yeah, he doesn't always go as deeply into the lines, but he usually comes with some sort of challenging options for black. So I don't know if they're just kind of messaging each other, saying, good luck. Enough of that, let's go. So yeah, my prediction is knight f3. Not exactly going out on a limb. I very rarely see Arka playing like knight h3 e4 stuff. I think he did that maybe in his first year in the AWC in 2016. But since then he's mainly been playing more piece play openings, you know, going for tactical attacks quickly, blowing his opponents away. So e3, okay. E6 knight f3. I would guess queen f6 or GrandLapin does often play knight c6. It's one of his more favourite lines, but I think I was expecting him to play knight h6 actually. But he's going for this, which is what there's many games between Arka and Onyebens, I think, in their matches in this line. But I've pretty much never played this. I think the main moves are like queen f5 and b5, and now the queen goes over to h4 generally, and then you can play queen g5. But I think there's some other moves as well. I'm not sure what the critical line is here. I guess white can just exchange and be material up, but yeah, d3 looks sensible. I'm guessing there's... So is f6, or do you want to kind of like try to unpin the queen somehow, or do you just play bishop b7? Knight e7 is also reasonable, so the knight potentially can jump out, but you do have to watch out for knight e5s, of course. Yeah, I mean, I've never played this position with either colour. So Wolfram plays d3, so it can't be too bad. I think he's usually quite hot on his openings. So now, of course, if black takes this, then knight g5 will jump with tempo, and then be grabbing h7. So black has to deal with this some other way. Maybe it's king d8. King d8 the best move. So someone's saying trade. Yeah, if you trade, then knight g5. So yeah, king d8 looked like the only move. That's it. Knight takes c. Yeah, I think he needs to play knight takes c5 now. I mean, it just looks good for white, right? You trade the queens at this point. Black will try and bishop b7 is kind of a natural move, and then try and jump somewhere with the knight, probably to f5. The only way you could maybe d5 even. Basically, black is just a pawn down. His king is also in a bad position. The only going point for him is that he has potentially some play down the c line. So of course, knight b4 comes into consideration in some positions. You might just play rook c8, but then white has blunted his diagonal, so he's now threatening to capture on d5. So if you don't play knight b4, if you play knight b4, you'll just be a piece down. But you potentially can look for some sort of play there. So now e takes d5. I wonder what is... I'd probably just take that if I was white. Yeah. Or knight a3 is also just putting pressure on the b5 pawn. Also sensible, just developing. Or bishop e3 maybe is bishop e3 might be a bit crap. Maybe after bishop e3 you can play knight b4. So bishop e3. So yeah, what happens after knight b4 now then? Because I was thinking, I guess white just takes it, doesn't it? Of course. Sorry, that's a little bit silly of me. That would have been pretty bad. But white is just a clip on up at this point. I don't really see any compensation at all. In fact, even if black had an extra pawn, I'd pick white. Not on c7 or something. It's kind of nice. Yeah, it says rook can come to d1. White has to decide which side to put the king, but I expect both would be okay. So yeah, I'll just castle maybe. Castling can be a little bit scary, but I don't think black's really got any real chances. Any real chances along along on the queen king side. I mean, so he might be trying to do some sort of thing, but it's just going to take too long to get anything going. And white can play f4 in some cases as well, and just kind of smash open the position. So black's idea is, okay, so after c5 you can play bishop here. But okay, Arka just allows it anyway. Not sure why he used to allow it, but it's still going to be really good for white. The bishop has a little bit of an annoyance factor, but it's not the end of the world. So white should probably just play g3 at some point, but he hasn't. So now g3 might as well be played, forcing white to open that line. And now I guess you play h5. Okay, h5 was too slow. Yeah, you're just going to open up over here. It's just not working for black. Rook g8. The white just moved the g pawn. Yeah, rook g8. You just play g4 or g3. And because the knight's here, I mean, usually a plan would be to push the pawn up to h4, then play rook g8. But then with the knight on e4, it can just immediately block anyway. So I would expect white can play g4 and just put the king on h2. No worries at all. And also remember, perhaps just play b3 and open up this line. Okay, he's going for it, potentially. Move the knight, maybe perhaps to push this pawn instead. Or perhaps just to go for some sort of exchange. I don't know why you'd want to exchange. This is why I was suggesting b3, but I guess he could just play b3 anyway. I think this is pretty hopeless for GrandLapin. I just don't really see any ideas. I mean, you can try this, but I mean, it's just obviously not going to work. Yeah, rook c1. No, he's not even doing that. Okay. This is a bit strange. I don't really get why he's done this. But okay, it still wins anyway. Just rook a1. And then you play d7. Then he moves the knight. Let's say like knight d6. But yeah, he's just opened up a lot of lines. I'm not quite sure why he's even. He can still play d7 and then okay, d7 still. Just made it a little bit more complicated than needs be, but it's still easily winning. But now the king can actually connect, so it just takes a little bit more time. But white will push for g pawn to a queen, exchange something for a rook. So yeah, GrandLapin is just going to try and keep the rook at all costs. So allow Arka to get two queens, but there's no way this rook's going to be able to survive on the open board. White will put a queen somewhere like g3 or g4 or something, and then trying to centralise the other queen so that the queens are both controlling loads and loads of squares. Like queen down here, and now he can just exactly exchange the rook off, and now just play the king back. Would have just won the last move, but this just wins. Okay, so GrandLapin White. Interesting to see if he goes for 2e3 again, and he does. So yeah, knight g5 expected. He did play bishop d3. Okay, yeah, I'm kind of surprised about bishop d3 because I don't really think it's a it's certainly, if you're putting a list together of the most challenging options to play in a World Championship final, this is pretty far down my list, if I'm honest. Arka is thinking, I mean, g6 is certainly the most the safest move, and it's usually chosen here. And now knight d4. In his last match, I think he played. So after bishop g4, he played f3. I'm surprised that Arka's thinking because GrandLapin did play this in the losers final against Farsunami. So if he had, even just looked at GrandLapin's last match, he would have seen this was played. But as he's thinking, I'm suggesting that he perhaps hasn't done his homework. Knight c6 is the traditional move here. I think it's also a perfectly decent move. And then GrandLapin played bishop b5 in that match. So that match went e5, knight e6, bishop takes, d4, and then bishop b4, c3, and then e4 wasn't played, but should have been played in that position. We may get there in a minute, depending on what choices the players make, but e5 is certainly a pretty good move here. Basically, if it's White's move, he'll just take this bishop with the pawn. Okay, so bishop f5 kind of wastes the tempo in comparison, because now knight e6, if you want to play knight e6, I mean, there's probably other moves. You can probably play something like e4, maybe, is even an interesting move. But yeah, knight e6, it just is a whole tempo up on black playing e5. So I would expect d4. And now the thing is that with the pawn on e5, what you can play is bishop check, c3, and then e4. And the point of this is that White really wants to play e4 himself and pressurise the d5 point. And Arka's tried to prevent that in another way by playing bishop h6, obviously preventing e4. But, okay, I mean, knight c3 maybe just comes. I think White just looks really nice, so he's attacking d5. He can just take it directly, or he can... okay, I was thinking you might just want to build up the position like something like f4. But this is nice. This is just kind of a nice position. a4 is a typical move in these kind of positions, but okay, c3 is also fine because this, well, it's kind of suicidal taking this pawn. White's queen will just be able to have all sorts of infiltration ideas. Queen d5. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, c4 can be played. I mean, this queen can come over here with a check, but then after b4, queen a4 takes, black is getting this pawn back, which is kind of annoying. So I would expect GrandLapin to try and avoid that with something like b3. That way, if this pawn's taken, then bishop a3 at least will kind of activate the bishop. Black will have to move the e-pawn, and then the bishop can come in with a really good position for White. So b3 I think looks sensible. Well, actually it looks really bad, doesn't it? Because actually I think it just loses because of queen b5, and then c4, queen b4. So that would actually be a pretty bad choice. So that's probably why he's thinking, because it's a little bit tricky to see the right move. He's played it. So after queen b5, the idea is to play bishop a3 with tempo. Okay, so you play this with tempo, then play c4. That makes sense. Okay, so now bishop a3 will come. But then rook takes a3. Yeah, so this is just done, I think. So it's just not a good start for GrandLapin. 2-0 down against Arka, two-time champion. So Arka's gone for the atomic attack as well. knight d4, bishop g4 as usual, f3, bishop f5. Yeah, it takes knight c3 and a6 is probably the more preferred move, I think, here. c6 can be played, but it's a little bit. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't like b5. I think against b5 it tends to improve the strength for some of these ideas with knight e4, and then pushing this pawn. So perhaps just knight e4 here even. But you can also play moves like a4, just trying to pressurise the queen side. Yeah, so in lots of these positions, sometimes the move c5 is played, just to, and then it will follow up with bishop d6 takes. It's fairly natural. I think I just prefer the pawn to be on a6 rather than the pawn on b5 in these positions, just to avoid this giving white this hook with a4. D takes e4. Okay, so that's kind of double-edged. So you're really asking for this d5 push, and black has to have a pretty good response. So I'm guessing the response is planned is bishop d6. Black screen again. Okay. Yeah, I tried to do it. Look at the Twitch chat for a minute, but think of the viewers, yeah. Of course, I'm thinking of viewers. So now queen h4 is a threat, so coming into h3, so white has to prevent that somehow. So you can do that by playing multiple moves. You can play g3, looks kind of sensible because you're also blunting this bishop. So g3. I'm trying to think of how best for black to really try and get some counterplay going, because I mean this is coming, so maybe black just plays e5 now and just tries to push e4. It looks very slow to me. It doesn't look like it's gonna. But I mean his position isn't without chances. So one option for white is to play f4, just opening up this queen and also threatening to take on e5. After that, so black, I mean queen h5 isn't a huge threat, it's just sort of an exchanging idea to exchange the queens and try to kind of take any bit more, because black's position got a little bit more space, got a little bit more chances of dynamic play. But b4 I like actually, b4's a nice move. The bishop is going to go to b2 and pressurise the centre. Yeah, it's quite kind of a nice move, I think. I'm not sure. I think a5 was perhaps not the best use of tempo, but it's, now black's got to try and find another idea. So he's just going to exchange pawns, I guess. So bishop takes e5. Is black just taking on a2? If so, I just really like white's position up. I mean, I didn't see what was wrong with bishop takes e5. Looks good, but a4. I guess white's just keeping that pressure on that line. It's still not clear what black's going to do, but he can play bishop a3 now and avoid that loss of a pawn, which I'd probably do. Just play bishop a3 and then move the maybe bishop a3, bishop takes a3, knight d7, but then b takes a takes b5, and the light squared bishop is looking really nasty. Bishop c4. Well, that's quite nice. I hadn't seen that at all. So d6 is coming. Is the point. So black hasn't really got time to do this, because d6. But yeah, I think these guys are a bit sharper than me, but I'm not. wow, bishop back to d6. I mean, I hadn't seen the actual kill, to be honest, after b takes c4, d6, c6, d7, king f8, but I believe that there would be one. It looked pretty... well, the pawn on d7 is obviously just a bit of a monster, so... I guess Arka was just counting on the fact that he was just going to have a great position there. Knight f6... looks like the natural move here, but then d6 is coming still. You said a bad word. Monster. c6, d7, king f8. And, I mean, if white can somehow attack along this diagonal, then he'll be doing great. But it can be blocked just with the pawn at the moment. Oh wow, okay, fine. That wins. Straight up wins, I think. Because, okay, yeah, queen a5 is just a check, but it doesn't change anything. Yeah, I agree. Bishop d6 was pretty miserable. I mean, it's 3-0 to Arka now. It's looking pretty grim. I think GrandLapin's switched openings. I don't think this is a particularly... Okay, this is one of his pet lines, actually, but it's not a particularly, again, challenging line, but it is slightly better for white. It's just a nice position. Queen f4 is the best move. f3, queen takes e5. Going to d4 is the other option, but then d3 is a more useful move for white than f3. So yeah, this is kind of a nice... So white just unpins this knight, so now he has options in the position of playing bishop a6 and knight b5. In many cases he can play those moves. So black has to be careful. Sometimes you can just play the knight out to a6 just to try and avoid any of that funny business. So then if white wants to set up the knight jump, then he plays bishop takes e5. Bishop takes a6, I'm sorry. So knight a6 is natural, but I think this is quite a well-known position. I can't remember what the theoretical move is. If I reach this position, I think I'll probably just play knight a6. Hopefully I wouldn't get hit with anything super nasty. Maybe knight e4, but it doesn't look like it's winning by force or anything. But Arka again thinking... It's kind of strange that Arka is thinking so much just after the opening when GrandLapin is playing the lines which... I mean, I know that he plays these lines, and I haven't looked at anything beyond his last match in quite a long time. So it's a little bit strange. Makes you kind of think that perhaps he didn't prepare properly, or well, he's clearly doing okay for it regardless. Bishop e2, yeah, bishop takes c3 is natural. b4, yeah. So white's just got a pleasant position, I think, here. So the bishop will probably go to a long diagonal, and e5. If he plays knight f6, then this is kind of asking for, well, knight f4 can be answered with knight g4, but it just looks a bit precarious along this diagonal when e4 is a nice move. The idea is that you're pressurising the f5 point, so knight g4 is answered by e takes f5. So okay, f4. Now white can jump with knight g5 and then answer knight g4 with a capture on f4 perhaps, and then look to push the f pawn up. That looks pretty decent. The alternative, I guess, is to play g4, but I would prefer to do this. Arka may even decide to open up the h file, but I don't think it's going to give him realistic chances of opening that line after takes h4. As soon as it's pushed to attack with g4, he'll play h4. So yeah, knight g4, f takes, g takes f4, I expect. I mean, you could take this way instead, and then just try and open the f file. And after castles, you have to calculate after castles king h1 if you're forcibly opening the f line. Because I mean, GrandLapin absolutely has to win this game, I think, pretty much. So after king h1, f3 takes, rook f2 takes g5. Well, the bishop is actually on this diagonal, isn't it? So it could be that black has to play something like e5, and then it's just a case of whether white can force open his diagonal in combination with rook f1. So he's probably trying to calculate f takes g4 for to see if it's winning by force. And he's gone for it. So he hasn't castled, he plays rook f8. That makes some sense. King h1, I'd expect. e5 directly. But now bishop g4. Isn't bishop g4? Is he trying to run? But then g takes f4. So I think that's perhaps a blunder by Arka. It's quite rare. He doesn't usually make these sorts of tactical blunders, which is one of the reasons why he is so dominant in these matches, because he just tends to, almost everyone else makes these kind of mistakes now and again, but he tends to be quite consistent. I think d5, bishop d7, king e7 is probably the only way, but then g takes f4 is just going to be winning. There's no way he's going to escape here, so you can probably try to, but yeah, whatever he does, he's going to get mated in short order, I think. If he runs with the king over this way, then white will play rook f1, and if needs be, he can even crack the position open a bit further if he wants, but he won't need to. He can just put a rook down, do some checks, maybe play bishop e6, and then take on b7 if he wants to do it prosaically. But I suspect there will just be a forced mate. Yeah, so Arka's just moved the b pawn just to avoid those sorts of mating ideas, but now rook f7, king d8, rook e7, looks like it's just going to be mating. Rook e7 now, I think, and the rook just wiggles in. So, you know, rook e7, c5, rook e8, king c7, rook c8, and followed by mate next move. And this must be a mate too, as bishop e6 comes. So white actually had a choice between mates. So bishop e6 just looked like it was mating next. But okay, I mean, white can't really mess it up. It's rook e8 now. Yeah. So okay, so GrandLapin won that. I think he kind of needs to. So it's a 10-game match. I probably should say this for anyone watching that doesn't know. So it's a best of 10 games, which means that, you know, if someone scores 5.5 points, then they'll win the match if they do it within those 10 games. If it gets to 5-all, then they play some more games. Basically, they play sets of 2 games, and then I think if it reaches 7-all, then it goes to an Armageddon, which is unlikely to need to be explained. So I shall wait until that point. Yeah, I agree with what Wolfram said there. I mean, I've not been that impressed with the way Arka plays these lines in general. I mean, I've played these lines with c6 against him. To be fair, I've only played against him twice, but one game I won with black, and the other game I got a pretty good position in the atomic final. But I squandered any chances I had and lost that game. But the position I got out the opening was pretty decent. But yeah, I'm outside my knowledge by this point after bishop b4. It's one of these positions that looks like it should be quite good for black. Some lines need to be calculated, like knight f2, queen h5, g6, queen h6. I mean, knight jumps like knight d3, king e2. d5. So GrandLapin is playing pretty quickly, but it looks to me like, I mean, if just knight e6 followed by h takes g4, is white just not doing much better? I'm also kind of wondering if maybe you can take and then play queen f3, but that's, you know, you're kind of like getting a bit dicey with white here. I preferred something a little bit more more sedate. But okay, Arka plays f5. So yeah, knight f2 looks like it doesn't work at this point. It's queen h5. sometimes you can get these lines to work with stuff like knight d3 and then moving the bishop to c5, but in this case, you know, there's pieces pieces on here, so I'm not sure. Knight f2, queen h5, knight d3, king e2, bishop c5, takes on d5, and then I think you take with this knight to avoid any queen b6 moves. And then I don't see, because black needs to go very, very fast, right, because queen f7 is just mate, so black probably, oh, he's gone for it. As you see, so there must have been something there that I missed. I think it might just be that he was going to do this perhaps and win the queen, rather than so if queen h5, I think it was knight e4 that was concerning, and then d3, knight g3 and take the queen. They're saying mouse slip, but it looks like perhaps queen h5 would have lost the queen as well. But surely, I mean, it was a better version though, because you did get tempo for development for white. And also g6. G6 is actually quite a nice move, because you're threatening just to take here with the pawn. I'm still looking at those other lines of queen h5, knight d3, and I've actually seen maybe there was d4, maybe that was mating. Yeah, I think what Katarski is saying is right. Queen h5, you know, he didn't want to play queen g4, and this is actually, well, this for the match, this is really good news, because I think when Arka went to a 3-0 lead, it looked pretty depressing, you know, in terms of making this a competitive contest. But with, you know, if GrandLapin can get it to 3-2, so here he can still calculate these lines with knight d3. Here and then d4, and then after e4 perhaps you can play like knight f4. This is what I was thinking before. So can you play d4 now? Looks like it might be quite strong. He can also actually there's quite a few nice moves here, but d4, bishop takes g4, no fuss. But then okay, you do have to worry about knight e6. But yeah, it is just winning, because I mean b2 is just hanging too. But d4, bishop c5 looks like forced mate. So bishop c5, knight takes d5. Yeah, there is. It's just knight f4, isn't it? Just wins. Yeah, so it looked like, I mean, he spent some time. I wonder why he didn't just go for the checkmate. But this way, there are some more moves played, but it shouldn't change the result. This should just be winning. But you just want to end these games as quickly as you possibly can, really, when you have these positions. Because Arka can be, I mean, he hasn't got much resources to be slippery here, but he is quite a hard to pin down. I'd have thought e4 might be just play e4 and rook d8. Oh, I'd have played e4 first, just to avoid this d3 move. But okay, I mean, he can play something like, because now white can play d4 himself. It just keeps the game going for a bit longer again. And black's king, yeah, so I'm not sure about king f8 either. So, oh, this is a nice move though. Bishop d6 just to block this off. Okay, yeah, that just ends the counterplay, I think. So that's a good move. If he didn't have that move, it was starting to get a little bit wondering if something bad's going to happen. But this should just be fairly straightforward now. I've said that a few times, but yeah, knight c3. bishop d3, I guess, will happen, but he can just play e2, and the game is done. Yeah, rook e8, bishop f2, or bishop f4 is probably simpler, and then the rook comes down with a check. Yeah, rook down check, and there'll be a mate to follow. Oh yeah, you made a bit. Yeah, it didn't need to go on that long, but just get worried about those things. So he's gone for the same line that gave him success in the last game. No one's asked for a break yet, so Arka is whizzing through the moves, and he plays f5 quickly. So considering last time he thought for a long time, then played knight a6, it's slightly I don't know if he was prepping that's somehow in between, or thinking about this in his head while playing a game. But yeah, knight f4 to me looks like the what is the idea of bishop f8? I don't know what position that was played in. I don't remember that move. Oh, they're saying bishop f8 in these positions here. Yeah, bishop f8. I have seen that idea. The idea is yeah, you don't bundle up e5, and I think these lines with bishop e2 and giving up the bishop, I guess, is considered to be quite nice for white with b4 and the bishop pair. So bishop f8 is keeping the bishop pair, but yeah, it does look a little bit weird. Knight d5, yeah, that's with the other knight on f4, that's certainly a move to consider. And interesting to note that if GrandLapin does win this game, he does tie up the match. I wonder, has Arka ever lost? I think he must have lost 2 games in a row before, but I wonder if he's lost 3 games in a row ever in the Tournament World Championships. I suspect not, but he could be on track 2. So bishop c4, d5. What happens if you just take bishop takes d5? So I guess after bishop c4 he's not playing d5, but I'm not sure. Because if he moves the knight, then knight e6 check can come. Then king g8 perhaps. But then there is a discovered check, the knight d8 and take on b7. So bishop c4, d5 takes. I guess bishop e6. Does that save the day? And now knight e6. I guess is king e8 the only move then. King e8 looks kind of forced. I mean, if you go this way, if you go here, then you've got to worry about knight d8 and taking on b7 because it's with a check. So I think king e8 is forced. But it looks like, white should have some sort of breakthrough. Breakthrough in that position. Okay, he's just giving up. Actually, that's a better option. Now, white probably is. So, knight b4 is black's idea of counterplay here, or for counterplay here. I wonder if you can just get away with, say, bishop f7. I quite like controlling the e8 square there. I don't know why not. And now just moving this rook, to e1. But I liked it better with the bishop on f7 and then try and just push the e pawn. Well, open up the e line if black lets you, of course, but otherwise just push this pawn through. The benefit of it being on g8, so the negative of it being on g8 is that the rook come to e8. The benefit is that if black had tried to move the king away, then this rook would still be stuck. Not that impressed with what's just happened, but okay, e5 should probably. Oh, hang on, f takes e4 now. Oh no, because the f pawn is pushing fast. If it wasn't for the f pawn push, then f takes e4 would lead to a king and pawn endgame with an outside pass pawn for black. But yeah, immediate dynamic considerations do come into it. Now he's attacking d6, so d5 is played. He should probably look to play e5 at some point soon. Yeah, so now push the pawn up. And I would expect black to start pushing these pawns and just gain as much space as possible over this side of the board. Yeah, put the king to f2. Now rook g1 and h5 are coming into it. Or perhaps just put the rook to h1. He puts the rook to g1, which is actually probably a better option. Black might need to run with the king. So h5. His idea is that, yeah, but this is yeah, I'm not sure about all this, but okay. Both sides having strong pass pawns. So white should probably move this pawn, otherwise, so d3 will come. But this is also fine. White is hoping to play rook e6 next, which will basically just be kind of like a forced mate. So rook c6. Now I suspect that rook e6 anyway captures rook e1, and then d3 rook e6 is winning. So g5, he's kind of hoping to get some quick counterplay, I suspect. So rook takes rook e1. He's taking a tempo out to do that, which I suspect he can, because he's going to win the tempo races really easily. As soon as black plays d3, takes c2, rook c1, he's just going to be winning. So I mean, he can just maybe just take on c3 now. This rook doesn't have time, so just king f3. Okay, I think lots of ways wins. He's just going to push the rook up, and it's a win for white. I suspect. Well, I don't know why Arka hasn't resigned yet. I'm not sure if he thinks there's some sort of trick, but looks like it's time to resign. I'll just play rook takes h8, and game over. So 3-all. I was not expecting that when Arka went 3-0 up. I was expecting I had not enough faith in GrandLapin, clearly, because it's been a very nice comeback. So taking a break. So I'm just wondering, so I don't know if Arka took his foot off the gas a little bit. So if we look at the, I don't want to miss the, I'll keep GrandLapin TV open. I will just open in a new tab here. So this game looks like, so Arka just won quite smoothly this game, I think. So I don't know why he didn't revisit this opening, because he just kind of won very straightforwardly. Is it knight e7? Knight e7 was played relatively quickly, but some other games have been played here. So the Atomic Chess bots mostly playing, and Wolfram against GrandLapin. So GrandLapin must have known the position. But yeah, he just didn't get into the game ever. And the second game, yeah, there was this moment in this game where black came back to d6 with the bishop. So there was some consideration about what to do after b takes c4. So I think the obvious move for white is just to push this pawn up, right? So black covers the d6 square, and then moves the king. And yeah, I didn't see a knockout blow or anything for white here. He has to deal with this threat on b2. Yeah, I mean it looks like, I mean, it'd be nice if you could you need to somehow get onto this diagonal with the queen, but I'm not quite sure how white presses home this. I mean, the queen is really stuck down to d8, so I would have thought white is doing pretty well, but no immediate knockout blow, and it did look kind of miserable going back with the bishop to d6. Another move that probably had to be calculated was this move, which is just taking on b2, but then d6, sorry, is kind of killing, because you're opening up his bishop along here and threatening here and c7. So black will be in huge trouble there. And the third game, so this is kind of standard stuff. I like a6 as a better move, and I've had a couple of games I played against. I think in the Banter Blitz I had games from this position as black against both GrandLapin and Tsunami, and I think those players themselves, GrandLapin and Tsunami, have played in games in this position many times. But I was a bit surprised by b5, because I did think, white has good chances of playing a4 at some moment, either right away or quickly, maybe after a couple of other moves. And also knight e4, I think I mentioned on the stream, is a typical idea. But playing d4 first is obviously fine, and then knight e4 kind of is a similar thing. And then I think this was, just quite a nice game by Arka, I think. So, the start of GrandLapin's comeback. So he has won 2 games now with this line, which is a more positional approach. So f5, which Arka played in the second game, is quite common. There was some comments on the move bishop f8, which I believe is what which Stockfish recommends, which looks completely ridiculous. I think the idea is that I say it looks ridiculous. At first of all, it looks ridiculous. It does have points to it, and the point is that white's idea is to play bishop a6 and knight b5 somehow, and the bishop. Black can avoid that by playing what Arka played in this game, knight a6, and then taking on c3. But then I imagine that this position is considered quite unpleasant. I would have thought something like g5 could be tried here, just to try to control this, but then f4 is going to come in some way, and white's going to get some good play. Let's see, I haven't restarted yet, have they? Maybe this is a moment to no, I'll resist checking the Twitch chat because I'll probably crash the stream again. f5, knight bishop b2, knight f6. I think this was just kind of a nice game, or it was played nicely for some time by GrandLapin. I was thinking about castling here. Rook f8. I mean, he did just blunder this. This move, e5 was a blunder, exactly as Stockfish points out. I'm not sure if castles was better. Maybe it wasn't as good. But I was thinking in this case, king h1 would come anyway, and kind of, I guess, the principled variation. I don't know if it's the best variation, but the principal variation is to play like f3, and then try to block out the bishop, and rook comes, and then you have to create lift for the king. So the rook comes down, but it hasn't got enough space to checkmate. But then white will be trying to blast open the position somehow and get this bishop involved in a checkmating attack on the king. And if black plays d5, which is kind of what black wants to play, right? He wants to be able to answer this with d4, but then there's going to be these ideas of just capturing these pieces. So it's not so easy for black to defend it. So this is what I was trying to calculate through at the time of the game, and it looks like it should just win for white. So I think f takes g4 was probably a good choice. The computer says it's +2, so that's not generally fatal. It's saying d6 here, which certainly looks a bit more sensible. I wonder what white should do here. You kind of want to move this light squared bishop so that you can play. The first move to be calculated is just to take on f4, when black can grab an extra piece there, and it's just a case of can he avoid checkmate, right? Like like before. Can he avoid getting mated? And so he can play bishop d7, rook f1 and castles queenside, which looks like it does avoid the immediate mate. White can throw in this move bishop f6 to kind of prevent that castling, and but now black perhaps, because white has blocked this f line, so rook f1, what black will have time to play bishop h3 and potentially give a check as well and kind of block up this line. So not so simple for black just to open up the line and try to brute force their way to the win. Okay, and we're back on for the next match. Let's close those down. So I think maybe if Arka just goes back to this line with knight f3, he had a lot of success with that, but okay, he's doing something different. Oh, this is what he played. Yeah, I'm not sure this is a very good practical choice, but I should probably withhold on saying that until a few more moves have been played. But this g6 line, GrandLapin played this in his last match against Tsunami. Yeah, so this line, bishop d6 exactly, is... I have played this against Arka myself a couple of times and got pretty decent chances. So f4 is there's a few main moves. Generally, I mean, white can always play knight c7 check in these positions, but it's often a good idea not to rush with that and to kind of hold that back. d4, okay, I'm kind of not sure about that move. I don't recall that move particularly. But the idea is, I mean, bishop is not directly threatening to take this because the knight will come to d6 with check and then grab all these pieces. So yeah, knight h6 is a kind of a sensible move. The usual moves for black in these kind of positions are to, at some point, you can often play the move a5, just get rid of this pawn from being exploded, and then after the knight sometimes jumps in, then you can play this another knight out to c6. He's played knight c6 directly, so he has to calculate or have some idea in mind against simply capturing this bishop and just kind of saying, okay, I'm a pawn up, and with a threat of bishop b5. So trying to think what his idea there is. A king f8 is obvious. b4. So now a5 is kind of a typical move in these kind of positions. Just trying to get some queenside play. Basically, black does have moves that he can play. You know, if he's not sure on what to do, he can play moves like a5. Also, b6 can sometimes be sensible. Even the move bishop h2 could be considered, but I'm not sure grabbing that exchange is always advisable. He has gone for it. So I would think rook takes h2 will be played, but it could be that Arka will just put up with that bishop. But it will kind of be kind of annoying, and if you want to put up with it, then you have to make a move with this bishop somehow to avoid just these this check being super annoying. So yeah, he plays rook takes h2, it's a sensible move. This knight can sometimes jump around and cause some aggravation for black. But I think as an outcome from an opening, you know, black is a rook up, right? So I think if you're going to be playing black in Atomic these days, I mean, this is well, okay, is the exchange up? Sorry, this knight for a rook and a pawn, which I would think that white is doing quite well here, but well, the state of Atomic is that white is generally much better in the starting position. So if you've got a chance to unbalance the game and get a kind of a messy position, then it's usually a winning outcome for black in terms of that's what black's after at the start of the game. So yeah, a5, this natural move comes. White can just grab this exchange back, having said all that I've just said, if he wants to. But he decides just to kind of keep this knight, and generally having a minor piece stuck in your opponent's position is, with this many pieces left on the board, is usually worth good value for the exchange. Yeah, so I'm wondering how black should best try to generate some play. He just saves the exchange. His position is, he is starting to get a little bit squashed. So knight f7. The idea, I think, is that he basically, well, he is struggling for moves is one point. Tempting white to take here, which I suspect Arka will not be tempted by particularly. 98 is a better move. It also opens up this idea of simply just capturing this knight. And it's hard for black to really use this knight properly. I mean, he might, if he tries to jump this way, then potentially this knight can, his pawn can just be captured because there's no ways of black infiltrating with the queen. So knight g5, I'm not quite sure where that knight's going next. So if we just simply take this, knight, I'm not sure, so f4 is played instead. Again, I'm still not sure what black's next move is. Taking this at least gives black some, some obvious moves like bishop a6. h6, yeah, sensible. I think white is just kind of squashing him at this point. So that prevents this, but this bishop can be taken as well. Or white can just continue building up his position. The c file can't really be used by black, that's the main issue, because knight there. So I think by this point GrandLapin is probably just hoping for, I think I'll just take that bishop, I wouldn't want to allow him just to move it back again. Materially and on position, looks pretty fantastic for white now. This other bishop can be developed somehow to a3 in combination with e5 perhaps. Perhaps you can even slow play it and play g4 and followed by e5. But g4, yeah, I think there's many ways to skin this cat, and it's looking unpleasant. Knight d5, he's got basically, I think, I'm not quite sure about knight d5, it looks a little bit, I don't know if he's trying to go in here with the check, or he's trying to capture on f. Look at, well now, some counterplay for black. Oh yeah, it's just game over. So 4-3, GrandLapin going back to the well, going back to what served him well so far. And I think that's probably a good decision. I suspect he probably has at least one or two more ideas in his locker, but this has been working very well so far. But there was a break since the last game, so it's possible Arka has come up with something here. But so he plays f5 again, which knight f4 worked out well for GrandLapin last game. Well, last game they reached this position. So d5 is one way of avoiding these knight d5 jumps, but then after knight d5, white will probably play bishop a6 with a different tactic, like going to b5. So it's just kind of unpleasant, I think, this position for black. So I'm not sure what Arka was using the break for then. Maybe it wasn't even Arka that asked for the break. It could well have been GrandLapin, but I thought with the way the match was going, it was likely to be Arka that requested it. But of course, could be wrong about that. So knight a6, same as before. So last game, I think the knight jumped to d5, and it worked out pretty well. So yeah, he's done it again. Why not, right? If it worked last time, knight d5. I think, did he take on d2 last time? I seem to remember something about taking on d2, and then there was some knight checks and bishop c4 happening. So king f8. If king f8, then yeah. So was bishop c4 the move, or was it just? I seem to remember there being a rook on d1 last time, so maybe the position is slightly different. My memory clearly not up to scratch right now. But this position should just be. I mean, white is a piece down, but this knight on c7 is pretty nice. Oh, this is what happened last time. Yeah, bishop c4 in this position. Yeah, was it knight e6 check, king e8? Oh, of course, he did. Oh, it's a bit of deja vu. So I think bishop f7. I still prefer bishop f7 to bishop g8. And then, yeah, that's what he's played this time. And then rook d1. Can you play a3 perhaps? I'm wondering if you can just kind of push this knight back. Just want to get rid of that knight. So I'm wondering what is black's counterplay, right? He's going to try something over here, right, with some sort of h5, f4. But in reality, it shouldn't be too scary. I mean, if you just slow play it, play a3 and c4, yeah, he's played it. I quite like this plan, just playing c4 next, and just also kind of saying to black, like, what you're going to do. And I expect Arka to just go for some pawn push over here, like f4. But the thing about f4 actually is that it can be answered with e4, because then the knight can't jump here without the capture on f4. So he drops the knight back, but you can still just play c4, because the knight going to a4, it's not actually threatening any jumps at all. So yeah, the knight's just completely out of play now. Now you can just switch back to playing e4. So I would guess d5 will happen now. Knight. So okay, so he's jumping this way. I actually missed that, but slightly annoying. But yeah, so there's no time. So e4, black will play f4. If you play f4 to fix it first, then after knight c5, e4, the knight has time to go to d3. One way to prevent the knight jump to c5 is to play bishop e8. That's one way if you just want to try and keep that knight locked down. Yeah, c5 is another one. Do you switch now, play rook d1 perhaps, and just try and come down? The thing is that black is now ready to play king g7, so it could be that you just want to push the e pawn up and just try and get that pawn up there while you can. So he's played rook d1, so now perhaps, yeah, either rook d8 or king g7 was going to be played. King g7 can be met by bishop g8, and then black, the only way black can be able to activate this rook is by pushing the h pawn, which will likely get blocked up. But so usually, like this sort of exchange, you know, this kind of position, I wouldn't recommend it. Perhaps in this position, like rook d2, rook takes, the knight can perhaps come to c5 and then d3. But generally, like this outside pawn majority, you know, against these two pawns would be quite decent for black. But because his rook's in such a kind of a difficult position, it might be pretty awkward for him. G takes f4 is it wouldn't have been the move that I would have played, but it's obviously has some sense. White is probably hoping just to get some nice rollers in the centre. And in the last game in this line, he did have some very nice play with his passed pawns. So Arka pushing the h pawn, yeah, getting some space for his rook. He's probably hoping to just push these pawns even further. h4 is an attempt to stop that. So now black can either open up a g line, which is probably going to favour white more than black. Like after takes king h2, this rook is coming to g1, so he probably won't do that. Yeah, he does something else instead. When he's got this knight, there's always chances that in the future this passed pawn will prove to be really awkward for white. But e5 is nice because the idea is, I mean, he's just going to push if he's allowed, and then this other pawn can join in. So black's got a choice. I mean, if he takes here, then it's obviously looking kind of nasty, because the white's rooks are looking much faster to the open lines. This rook particularly is just out of play. So now, has he got some idea against e6? I'm not sure what was wrong with e6, but I think this is just winning for GrandLapin. You can just take, rook takes d8 is probably what I would have played, but this is also pretty good. I mean, you can, I was thinking just bishop d5, look, okay, yeah, because now he's allowed this. I don't know why he's allowed this, but probably just mating, right? Bishop here. Well, okay, that's also checkmate. Okay, so 4-all. This is starting to heat up now. So Arka, I really think you should. Oh, is he going for it again? The two knights. 2e3. So I'd expect d5 from GrandLapin. Bishop g4, bishop f5, takes, and then last time GrandLapin played b5, but yeah, I do think a6 is a nicer move. But okay, we're going back for this line again. e6 was played in the previous game in this line, and then knight e4, takes d5, and then I think he played f5 here. But my recollection is that Arka was just doing quite well in this game. That was my impression at the time. I think he played e5 in this position. And then it was b4, which I think is a nice move. I like the move b4. e4, and now I guess his idea is knight f6. So he's played relatively fast, so I assume that he looked at this in the break. So not sure what I play as white. Rook c1, wow, okay. That's very, very deep. Actually, it's not that deep. He's trying to play c4, isn't he? But it's actually kind of like not the first move that would occur to me. f4 played. That's more of a move that looks quite natural. So I don't know if you can black just play castles or perhaps here. Another move you might be looking at is try to somehow get some move like knight g4, but I just don't think it's going to be working. I think that white can simply take that, and I'm not sure. So yeah, Wolfram's suggesting it as well, so thinking along the same lines, but I don't think it's working. So yeah, perhaps you can play a move like rook f8. The thing about castles is that it is pinning the knight down to the g7 pawn. Another move would be to move this queen, play something like queen d7, queen c8. Yeah, I've been saying castles. That was my first impression, is winning, right? I'm not sure about that, but maybe he's looking at his computer evaluation, I'm not sure, but I don't think it is winning. It looks a little bit, I mean, for example, white can play something like f4 there, and then g6 perhaps. So he's played castles. Okay, yeah. It was my first instinct, but I'm not sure. I just don't like the idea of pinning this knight. It seems like white should be able to use his tempo somehow. Like, I mean, so let's say, like, I mean, white can castle, for instance, or play f4 as the other move. I'd perhaps think about threatening queen h5, but of course black will stop that probably with g6, reintroducing this idea of knight g4, then what? I mean, white can try and block it out with a move like g4, but I mean, black is getting counterplay. It's kind of, if the play's going on over here and there's kind of open lines and some stuff going on, perhaps even g6 anyway. Yeah, he plays it. So knight g4 is a threat now that this pawn is not being exploded by the bishop. Knight g4, but say h3 prevents that. But so knight h4 takes, if you put the queen on the long diagonal, so not long diagonal, you know what I mean. G4, the bishop comes in, but I don't think it's giving anything more than that. If black just plays something like queen d7 anyway, perhaps, is interesting. It could also be possible just to play knight g4 takes and queen g5. Then f4 actually does defend all that. a5, okay, just ignoring all the action over this side. I think white has an advantage on this side of the board, so if black has to start playing over here, I think the trend may start turning against him. Queen e8 is more like it. I like that move a little bit more. He's got ideas of opening up the E line. So white obviously prevents that. So knight g4, so h takes is the first move to think about, but now queen c8, g4. There's not some. I didn't like the look of this before, but I'm not quite sure where he's gone. So is he going to go check and then queen d6? But bishop e5 is coming in as a block. So, this is nice, isn't it? So bishop f6, rook takes f6, g5, queen c8. But there is a defence though, because I'm not sure if he can play queen d2. Like, okay, throw this in first and then play queen d2 perhaps. And then, in fact, maybe it was worth not throwing in. This is a check. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of awkward now. I think it might just be lost for GrandLapin. Yeah, I mean, this is just losing. He's kind of trying to create a bit of a fuss, but queen f6 and then rook e8 will come with a win. Yeah, queen h4 the same. Okay, game aborted. I suspect that might be Arka. So they're allowed, I think they're allowed one break each, so I'm guessing, I would have thought at this point it would be Arka requesting a break, because he's lost twice in this line with black, and let's have a look at it. So this line here, I'm not sure, are they allowed to actually abort the game once it's begun? I'm not quite sure what the rules are on it. Once you've accepted the rematch, can you actually abort the game? I mean, seems like that shouldn't be allowed really. You should be, once the game begins, you're playing the game. But okay. One for the, one to check the rules, I guess. I suspect it's not specifically covered, but he's a Scandinavian GM. Is he a Scandinavian GM? Is that known, is it? Kasparov, that well-known Scandinavian grandmaster. So queen takes c5. I suspect it's Arka that's requested this break and is trying to check out this line, because if I was GrandLapin, I'd be wanting to just go straight into the next game. Who's the arbiter? Is it It's IJH, is it? What are the rules? What are the rules for aborting when the game starts? You let me know in the chat. Kasparov does play, well, he certainly used to play a fair amount of online chess. Remember, he used to, in the ICC days, I think he used to play online. You know, set up different accounts and play online with lots of different names. I don't think he wanted people to know exactly who he was, but eventually it got out who he was under all these different accounts. He used to play on ICC and on Play Chess. I assume that Switzerland flag was just a complete like made up thing. Yeah, this is Arka requesting a break, so it's okay to take a break, yeah? So you're allowed to start a game and abort it. I mean, it seems pretty, I'm sure they are, I mean, it seems pretty pedantic, actually, not to allow that, or to make a big deal about it, but it seems like you probably should, because I don't know if they come back to the game, if their colours will switch around now that they've aborted that game. They might have to abort another game as well, and make sure that GrandLapin is white in the next game. Has anyone played Hikaru at Atomic? Interested? Because that would be quite fun. I suspect he must have played some Atomic at some point on the ICC, I would have thought, maybe in his younger years. Because they have... he seems like the kind of person that would try his hand at all the different wild variants. And effortlessly get to a decent level. I saw on Peter Svidler playing an Atomic game. I don't know if anyone else saw this. He played an Atomic game and a stream on Lichess recently, and he was absolutely atrocious at the game. Well, to be fair, he didn't know what the rules were when he started playing the game, and he didn't really get to grips with it before the game finished. Oh, so they're saying GL requested the break? The last break was from Arka, this one has to be from GrandLapin. Unless Arka doesn't know that he's not allowed a second break and he's requested one, and GrandLapin doesn't know either and has said okay. Or in fact, I mean, if the game's aborted, I mean, it could just be GrandLapin doesn't have any choice. I would find it very weird for GrandLapin to take a break here, but maybe. I find it even stranger if GrandLapin requested it having made the first move, so he has actually started playing as well. Yeah, I don't know what the rules are. I mean, if Arka's requested a second break, or requested or just kind of forced a second break, when you're only allowed one, I'm not sure what the rules are. I think we'll have to find out from IJH what the... because he, I believe, is the acting tournament director. Chronotog, I think, is the tournament director, but he's not around, so it will be with him to decide what happens. Yeah, so that's right. So we're allowed a 10-minute break. One player can request each player can request one 10-minute break, and the rules say you're not allowed to use a computer in order to perform that analysis. That didn't used to be the rule. It used to be that you could analyse with an engine, but this was introduced, I think it was introduced this year as an actual rule. So again, it could be, I mean, if the players don't read the rules carefully, they may well think they're following them, but if they are using an engine and they are breaking the rules and cheating. But yeah, it's kind of impossible to police. It's one of the reasons why when I was running the tournament, I just didn't have that rule in there. But firstly, because I kind of think it's kind of, if you're getting crushed in the opening every time, it does make sense, you know, it kind of seems fair enough that you can have a little check with the engine. You can only check for a couple of minutes anyway. If your opponent's really well prepared, they may well have looked at it for, you know, have other things up their sleeve and for looked at it longer than you. So I don't really see an issue with, you know, in between games if you request a break and use an engine, especially because in this scenario you can have someone being, you know, unsportsmanlike and basically cheating that way, and there's no way of policing it, while another player would follow the rules and, you know, be a good participant, and they'd be the ones that are paying the price. So I do prefer it the other way around. Play a bullet game versus a top chess bot during the break. What, me? I'm not going to play against a toy chess bot. It will just depress me. Break to straight up prep should be heavily discouraged. Yeah, so I think when I was running it, I said you could request 2 breaks, and the reason was, so the first one break would be, you know, in case someone needed to use the bathroom, because these matches can go on for a little bit of time, and also one because, you know, if I kind of feel watching matches, you know, if one player is just destroying another person at the same opening line every time, and they've clearly prepared it deeply, having, you know, not being able to take a break to kind of see what you can do against that, it just leads to a very boring match. I would rather see, you know, having one surprise weapon turn into 5 white wins is not really particularly interesting to me. I'd rather at least give the player who's defending, you know, a chance to actually get into the game. That was the thought behind it. Obviously, Talk has different ideas as the tournament director, and I understand that he doesn't like the use of computers. And I said, okay, you can have a break, but you can't use a computer. But yeah, it's hard to police doing that. Just allow engine use during the game. Well, that is completely different. That's like saying, you know, if you have a match being played between, you know, for the World Championship match, between Carlsen and Caruana, you don't complain that they're using engines in between the games, right? It's perfectly part of the normal preparation and part of a normal situation, but it's quite different using it during the match. I think it's quite clear the distinction. So what time did they break? So this was 9 minutes ago. Okay, so we've got 1 or 2 minutes to come back. I don't know if it's worth, I'll open up in the, I've already done that actually, just to see what the opening, any good TV shows. I don't know if you've seen, a really good show I watched recently was The Boys. Just, I would recommend that. That's a very good show. Season 2 came out recently. I enjoyed it quite a lot. It's basically, for those who haven't seen it, it's kind of a superhero show, pretty much, where there's a group of superheroes who are famous for being like everybody's heroes and going around saving the day all the time. And it starts with someone joining their group, and it turns out that actually they're not so great after all. So okay, yeah, so it's been 10 minutes. I think we've mentioned these kind of lines before. The line with bishop f8 is okay. They have begun. GrandLapin has switched to knight f3. So no problem with the aborting stuff. Okay. I think the problem with the aborting stuff was not so much the switching colours, it's just the fact that I don't know if you're allowed to abort after you've started playing, but it might be worth finding out if GrandLapin did request a break, because if he didn't, then that's also not so good. And yeah, controversy does seem to follow Arka around in some of these matches, you've got to say. So, from a perspective, I'm hoping that GrandLapin can even up the scores here, just because, you know, it's nice to have a close match. There's never been a final which has gone to there's never been a final that's gone to tie breaks, which would be kind of nice to see. This one already, I think already this is, you know, the closest final that we've seen. We've had 3 other tournaments, World Championships played on League Chess, and I think the scores were, I defeated Onyeben 6-3, then Arka defeated Onyeben, I think it might have been 5.5, 3.5, or was it 6-3 maps? I can't remember exactly the score. I think it might have been 6-3, but and then 2018, actually there's been 4 tournaments. And in 2018 I lost 5.5, 2.5 to Arka, and then Arka didn't play last year, and GrandLapin lost the final to Onyeben by a very heavy score. I think 5.5 half. It clearly wasn't his day that day. Yeah, I don't quite get. I mean, this line, I think that the knight h3 line was. I'm assuming that Arka requested the break and then prepped it, which is why GrandLapin didn't want to go back there. But this position here, it's slightly better for white. He's got the 2 bishops, so this is a slight advantage for white. But I think black has pretty decent drawing chances, right? I mean, it's not like the material's been reduced, and the material is level. I mean, the 2 bishops are nice to have, and of course I'd rather pick white here, but there is some drawing tendencies to this position, which obviously suits Arka because a draw will win in the match. But GrandLapin is kind of doing things right, I think, gaining place over here and playing. I like the moves g5 and a4. They're good moves. So Arka's in a slightly tricky position. F takes g5 makes some sense. He's going to try and develop the knight probably to f6. And now rook g1 might come at some point, but you have to watch out for knight g4 and then takes and well, rook g1 does stop that, of course. Rook g1 is kind of probably a nice move, just threatening here. And after g6 you can then infiltrate with the bishop to h6, and just kind of use that bishop as quite of an annoyance factor for black. And then if you get the bishop to h6, then an idea might be to follow up with bishop h3, attacking e6, and after knight g4 opening up the f-file. Because when your bishop's on h6 controlling f8, you'll be able to quickly switch and invade with the rook. So I like the idea of you know, tempting black forward to play g6, and if he doesn't play g6, I'm not quite sure what he should do, because so g5 you can always just take it. He might be considering knight g4, trying to calculate this, but I didn't think it works. So bishop h6, yeah, nice move. So this is a good move as well, just aiming. So if white did try this idea that I kind of mentioned before, he's ready to play rook f7 now, which is nice. So white could just try and move, let's play something like king d2 perhaps, just connecting the rooks, and then you can kind of reintroducing this idea of doing this, because then after rook f7 you can just swap one rook and then the other rook will come in. But potentially it's not enough, because knight d7, you don't want to end up with just a rook perpetual for white. You need more than that. So maybe that you want to just try and play something over this side. So knight g4 wasn't actually played. I didn't see what was wrong with knight g4. But knight h5 is a more counter-attacking move. The knight can now come into g3, and then potentially cause some annoyance of its own. Probably leave it on g3 for the time being if you can, because it's not clear which of these squares it wants to occupy. And it's also nice to control the f1 square. So it is, that's still not going to work. You can't turn off people's access to engines, because they can just have their own stockfish running on their own machine. I mean, to be honest, when I played the tournaments, at the time the rules were that you could use engines. Sorry, I shouldn't really talk. I'll talk about this afterwards. But yeah, so this is looking kind of nice now. Yeah, check. It's just looking like it's going to be over, this match. Black is just winning, I think. These pawns will be pushed forward. So I think this means Arka is going to be the world champion. He has got some tricks up his sleeve, I think. Yeah, fascinating. Black can play rook takes c7 exactly if it comes to it, but I think just pushing these pawns is good. So his idea is that he wants to play rook f1 and then play bishop d6, I think was his plan, right? But I think it's just fine for black. So he's going to try and come this way. But again, I just don't really see. So rook c1, I guess, is what he's going to try. And then if rook c7, then he can kind of just attack the rook and then infiltrate. But rook c1, I think there was just d takes c4 was probably going to get played. He just needs too many tempi to infiltrate with the rook. And rook f7, there's always now just king b7. It's not going to be. I think is the game finished? I feel like this is swindleable. I don't think it is against Arka. To be honest, I don't see why. Knight takes c4. Okay, b1 knight. I mean, I'm not quite sure what. Why did he play knight b1 knight? It's just being a bit flashy. But wasn't really necessary. Yeah, good games. That was a good match. I enjoyed that match. It was quite close there. GrandLapin, I think. I'm not sure at which point in this game I got a bit distracted by the chat and didn't pay attention to it. It was knight f1 aiming for h2. Yeah, looks really good. So congratulations to Arka. I'll offer my congratulations. Yeah, I think they should consolidate Arka's trophies. They should just, in the in the list of his Atomic Championships, it should just say 2017. I'm in a maybe just a so small that you can 2017, 2018, 2020. So 3-time champion, which is pretty impressive considering there's been well, I'm not sure how many World Championships there've been in total, but I think there's been on Lichess there's only been 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20, so it's been 5. And he's won 3 of them, so it's pretty impressive. Clearly the dominant player in the World Championships in the Lichess era. And before Lichess there was not so many tournaments, not so many World Championships being played. Yeah, so Lapin requested the first break, Arka the second, so yeah, as sort of suspected. I found it a bit strange that Lapin requested the break at 3-all, but there we go. I guess he had his reasons, of course. So I think I'll leave the stream there. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the games. It was a shame it couldn't go to overtime. That would have been nice to see, but still a close match and good to watch. And again, congratulations to Arka, 2020 Atomic Champion.